Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Cool, Alex Hancock. So this is your second win. Some time has passed now, so how does it feel to be the two-time world champion?
Hasn't really sunk in. I guess I don't know. I don't know if how it would feel like when it did sink in. So maybe I'm not gonna ever be able to answer that question properly. But it feels very different to the first time. The first time felt like I'd sort of tried a lot harder to get there. So I guess it felt like more of a reward end of it. This time, um, I don't know. It just sort of happened. So it kind of took me by surprise. I think took quite a few people by surprise this time as well. So yeah, it feels good, and it's nice to be in the position again. But definitely a strange and very different feeling overall.
Yes, we kind of noticed that during the live stream after the game that they interview with Eureka and he asked you the same questions like how you felt and you were kind of like thunderstruck.
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah. Well, especially at the time, you don't really know how to feel. You go into. I'd expected to sort of get knocked out in the semi-finals, and I just kind of found myself winning it all. So it was just bizarre. Yeah.
Yes, and you already answered the next question, like which victory was more satisfying for you, 2018 or this year? But I think 2018 was your first time, so you were really trying way harder, like you said, and this year took by surprise. For the interview, we know you went with World with just one deck, like that deck you already knew that was Mono Wind. Second deck was still a big question mark. I don't know about you, but if I were going to a tournament without having a deck yet, I would be pretty stressed.
I kind of went into it thinking that. I mean, I had decks built that I brought with me or brought the materials with me because I sort of came out just as Opus 21 was coming out, so I got a full set of the cards, packed that in my suitcase, and came out to Japan with that, and just kind of figured more than likely I was gonna either just improve on one of the sort of older Opus 20 decks I'd been playing, or I was going to try and scrap together something new and maybe borrow some cards if I needed to. So I was on things like Mono Lightning, Mono Earth. There's even this sort of multi-element Fran deck that I like to mess about with. It was never really a real contender, but it's just something I sort of had built to try out with the new cards. Just trying to get a feel for what the new set was offering.
Mhm.
And yeah, I never really got much time to practice those decks before the week leading up to the tournament. And by that time, I was already kind of set on the Warrior of Light deck. And besides, everyone had kind of said to me the other options I was thinking about trying weren't really worth it. And I kind of felt that as well. That yeah, bringing two mono decks in this day and age is just kind of I think we're getting to the point in the championship series now where you need a bit more creativity to be able to sort of get fortunate enough to win the whole thing. So
Mhm.
yeah, just bringing two mono decks and hoping for the best. Maybe you make top cut, but it's just very difficult to win with such a predictable strategy.
Yeah, okay. So during the World, we clearly noticed that Beyond Destiny was having a big impact in the meta. We saw like the big returns like the Mona Ice, lots of aggro decks. Was that kind of in your expectation that you could expect during the World?
Well, the nice thing about Worlds being 16 man is that it's a lot easier to figure out what players are going to be on overall because the field's smaller and because everyone, well, a lot of the players are returning from previous championships. There's names a lot of people would have heard of if they've been around in the game for a while, and even the newer faces, you can just kind of get an idea for what they're going to play. So, for example, I knew Hunter Nance would be on Megisa, and I looked at what Megisa was getting from the new set, and I'm like, it's getting a lot of got good tools like the Tyvus and the Ward, this sort of warrior package,
Mhm.
improving an already strong deck. So it seemed like a no-brainer that he would play that. Um, and yeah, there was a few people in the room. I just kind of got a good vibe on what they'd be on. So yeah, I expected a decent amount of aggro. I also expected a decent amount of control, and there was that in the room. It's just the double aggro is what ended up being so successful for for Kaka and for Hunter, for Will. We had 3 out of the top 6 playing 2 aggro decks effectively. So yeah, it's you know, good thing that my mono win was packing Shinryu's, for example.
Yes, that was a big surprise to be honest. I'm gonna jump into the game 2, which was against the 13 deck, as you can see here. Uh, I assume you opened pretty decent. You went with a backup.
Yeah, normally the Warrior of Light deck, aims to keep any backup that searches the 7 cost Warrior of Light, of which there are 6, or just a hand with the Warrior of Light in general. So yeah, yeah, you just want to play Warrior of Light turn 2 almost all the time. Thankfully, in this tournament, there wasn't a lot of people playing like auto cancelling effects like Amaterasu or Ishtola. Even though the deck was kind of getting a bit more known about in the days prior to the event, not many people were sort of packing the answers to it because, fair enough, there weren't that many. As long as it was, there weren't that many people playing it. So it's kind of hard to prepare for something you don't even know if you're going to end up playing against.
Yes, but from what I understood was during the World Day 1 was actually a closed deck. The deck lists were locked, so you could not know. So did you kind of figure out that he was going first with Final Fantasy 13?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's a pretty small room. No one's like really allowed to leave the the venue itself outside of the lunch breaks and stuff like that. So you finish your game one fast enough, which I did. I went like turn one Warrior of Light, and my opponent
Mm-hmm.
sort of died over 2 turns. I had plenty of time to get up, walk around the room, see what some people were playing. I just kind of knew what some people were playing from just talking to them. Like, not everyone is super secretive about what they're playing. I've been testing with some of these people the sort of day before. So, for example, I knew Will was on the double aggro lineup with the mono ice and the FF13, and I knew when we sat down for the stream game that I was playing against FF13 as well as his deck A. But that doesn't
Yeah.
actually like change my strategy like at all. It just makes me more likely to just mulligan for a hand that can handle, him playing 3 forwards turn 1, but normally that hand involves Warrior of Light anyway, so it didn't really impact my thinking in this particular matchup.
Yes, and here I was kind of question like I saw you Discord Edgar, no Setzer, and then
Yeah,
we see the reveal was also an Edgar, so I was kind of like you could have kept it just in case if there's an Edgar, so you have a free 3 drop on the field. I because I
yeah, I
couldn't
haven't
see
actually
your
watched.
full hand, so
Yeah, I haven't actually watched the replay myself yet, so I don't know what the commentators said. But my hand, when I discarded for the Warrior of Light, there
mhm.
was 3 cards I was toying between keeping, and I got to keep 2. So I had Amaterasu, Bahamut, and Setzer were the ones I was deciding
Okay.
on. Now, normally you do keep a Axstar target in hand, because then if you reveal Axstar plus another forward and the player 3 drop from your hand, Axstar's doing 9,000 damage, and against FF13, that's likely to kind of win you the game on the spot. It was just weird because I had Bahamut and the Amaterasu, so I wanted. It was a bit of a hedge because I didn't have a crystal to make the Bahamut cost
Yeah.
2 anyway. But I was trying to, as I was doing the discards, I was thinking, well, Axstar is the only reason to keep the Setzer is because of the Axstar. The Setzer itself wasn't any good because all the forwards in my break zone. There's only 2 that you can see in there. It's Onion Knight and Refia, and I
Yeah.
wasn't intending to like play either of those cards in the game. Like maybe the Refia, but I never thought it was going to go on long enough for either of those 2 forwards to be relevant. So the Setzer just felt like a weak 5k body. So I thought, well, there's 5 crystal generating backups in the deck. Um, Maybe I just hit one of those, and then the Bahamut in my hand costs 2, and that can deal with the lightning he's going to play next turn. There's also the chance that I hit Faris. Faris on entry, because it damages Warrior of Light as well, it will
Yes.
always do 7k,
Mm-hmm.
so that would have killed the Fang. There was a chance I hit Alphino, which meant I could search for any character, which meant I could search for Faris as well. Um, Basically, in my mind, it was like I had to hit Axstar plus nothing for the discard Setzer to not work out, which is unfortunately what happened. And in my head afterwards, I'm thinking, should I have just kept the Setzer anyway to have even more of a chance of kind of, well, not high rolling, but not low rolling as hard as I did? But just in my head, I thought there's so many good combinations of the top 5 cards that I could see here that I decided to keep the Bahamut because I thought it was more of an insurance policy, and it's also the case of Axstar comes down here, it Soul freezes half the board except for Neil, so he's not threatening anything on the next turn. So the lightning's not really going to do anything. He
Mm-hmm.
gets to like maybe push a couple of attacks and draw a card, but he's not threatening my life total that much. And then more than likely, I can draw either a Faris or another forward on the next turn for Axstar to start killing his board. Unfortunately, he draws the sort of one Larketius in his deck to deal with the Axstar, and very suddenly I'm super behind. So it was just a kind of awkward run of sort of reveals and hand for me that yeah, I'm not convinced I should have discarded the Setzer in the end, but I had sort of good reason for doing so.
Yes, yeah. Now that you explain, and then also finally really sniping on your hand, just seeing that you actually had the 2 summons right away, because I thought you just top decked one of the 2. That was kind of my question, like why didn't you just kept that one?
Yeah, I top decked both of the summons on the turn I played the Warrior of Light, and I just I don't know. I thought they were going to come in handy. I thought that honestly, I just thought the Warrior of Light's going to hit better than Axstar
Mm-hmm.
plus Gilgamesh, and the Bahamut's going to make sure that he never gets a sort of lightning to resolve. And then it just sort of ended up working out the opposite of that. But that was a sort of lesson learned. Maybe if I'd been a bit more practiced with the deck beforehand, I wouldn't have gone for that kind of gamble. But at the same time, maybe I would have done the same thing, because sometimes, especially, I don't think FF13 is like a bad matchup for the deck because of Axstar and Faris and things like that. But you kind of just when he's going with the perfect start with the Fang Vanille Hope into the lightning threat next turn, your Warrior Light kind of needs to hit good anyway. So in a way, you're thinking, well, either I'm going to high roll or I'm going to die, and that's kind of what ended up happening. And then there's the irony here that the Alphano is like 1 card away, and if I'd hit Alphano along with the Axstar,
Yeah.
I would have just been able to add Ferris anyway and
Mm-hmm.
sort of win the game on the spot. So it was just it was just all just slightly off, unfortunately, and it worked out for Will in this situation.
Yeah. So yeah, that's we saw in the game as well. That I assume after this game you kind of had like, okay, one loss is still acceptable, and because I think you were very confident with your mono wins.
Yeah, I was. I was at the time, and I knew that to guarantee a place in the top 6, you only needed to go 5 and 3. So realistically, this Warrior of Light deck could have gone 1-3, and if the mono winner deck had just gone 4-0, then it wouldn't have mattered. Obviously, in hindsight, I'm very glad the Warrior of Light deck went 3-1 like it did.
Yes, and then we have against Kaka top 4. You Amat his Warrior of Light. Judging on your deck list, you were just running 2 summons, one of which were the kind of actually with the mindset in case you're gonna face up against another Warrior of Light deck.
It was just an idea one of my buddies had while we had been testing the deck that week, that the Warrior Light has very little interaction on the opponent's turn. I mean, this list, if you take away the Bahamut and the Amaterasu, it really is just Warrior of Light's S ability, Ultimate Shield, and even then that's barely interaction because it's something that's kind of always there, that's always threatening your opponent anyway. But if there's something they can't see, like an Amaterasu or a Bahamut, something that kills their forwards, stops their auto abilities, there's something they have to think about a lot more. And especially when we get to the sort of the top 6, when the deck lists are open and you're aware of cards like that being there, people might end up playing around them and stuff like that. So yeah, it just seemed sensible to play those 2 cards, and also the fire backups in the 3 CP department are really lacking. So I wanted to put in Muti, as that was like the best one I could kind of find, and therefore you needed a couple of fire summons, and Bahamut and Amaterasu seemed like worthy additions.
Yeah, because I also read your report, and you were also saying like Bahamut could maybe have put down and be replaced with something else.
Yeah, you can just play more. Like realistically, Amaterasu and Bahamut the best summons you're going to get, because Bahamut with the crystals in the deck is just going to be the sort of cheapest removal. You can just a lot of the time when you play Warrior of Light, you end up with 2 cards in hand anyway. So if you've got a crystal somewhere in there, the Bahamut, you can use that as part of your last 2 cards. You also usually keep a 4 CP Warrior of Light in your hand if you got it as part of the ultimate shield, so you can use that as 5 CP as well. But I think just probably, well, especially now that the deck's had the success it's had at the championship, it makes more sense to just play more copies of Amaterasu, because in theory you're going to see a lot more mirror matches, and as you can see against Kaka here, the Amaterasu, sort of wins the game on the spot. And that was something I was very aware of as well. I'd done some testing with my mono win deck against this matchup a couple of days before, and one of the games I just played the 3 CP Ishtola win forward from Opus 5 on my second turn, and he just couldn't do anything. He just, he couldn't play Warrior of Light because he would get cancelled and he would lose all his tempo. And there's not really any forward in this version of the deck that can do anything about Ishtola that early in the game. So yeah, we've kind of just learned from this tournament and testing afterwards that you can't really beat the Warrior of Light once it goes off. You just have to stop it ever happening in the first place, either by cancelling the auto ability or taking it out of the hand with Zidane or something like that.
Yeah, because we saw the moment that you play your War of Light, you already saw Kaka clapping his hand like, there he goes.
Yeah. I mean, I think like Kaka said as I played, that Amaterasu came out of my hand so fast, and Kaka kind of chuckled and he was like, "Only one," with the referring to the fact that he knew at that point there was only one Amaterasu in the deck. And obviously I got pretty lucky to draw it, especially because I mulliganed. So he did his Warrior of Light was a pretty justified play to try and sort of catch me off guard and get as much early tempo as he could. And of course he ran into the one-off, which immediately punished him and basically just stopped him doing anything the rest of the game.
Yeah, and that's also what we kind of noticed in the finals, game 3, that what was your thought process? Like, you opened straight away with 2 backups. That's pretty standard, like one of the best backups that you could have.
So I'm pretty sure
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure I already have the Every in hand, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
The reason I
so.
went for 2 backups is because both of them have really good effects. So if I draw another Mughal 11, then I can search for any card, search for more backup, search for an answer, search for a Shimryu if he plays 3 forwards turn 1, and Chocolate can just start getting counters. And the faster I develop counters, the faster I get the extra draws, which gives me that a little bit more CP I need in order to deal with whatever Hunter's going to play. And then I think I had the Every. Maybe I drew it for turn.
Yeah,
I
I
got
thought
really
you
lucky.
had
I
the
don't know,
Every in your hand.
but yeah, with the Chocolate down, you get to just generate a counter with Chocolate, tap the Moogle for the Every, untap the Chocolate again. Every Chocolate is a pretty common wind combo these days that lets you generate the draw basically a turn faster each time. So you can build that CP back really quickly. But yeah, there was a huge benefit of 2 backups here, because I kind of think I managed to psych Hunter out with it, even though I wasn't planning to, because I was told after the game that he did have access to the Magissa combo here on his first turn, but he was scared that because I played the 2 backups, that I had Dryad in hand, which would have done 4,000 damage to Magissa after he had pinged it with whatever he was planning to do. So I guess he just thought it's not worth the risk. But yeah, I thought about it a bit, and I thought if he just had Magissa, he should have just gone for it. It's the final, it's game 3. You've kind of just got to hope that luck's on your side, kind of thing.
Yeah, because I was about to ask you, like, what was your mindset? I was like, were you happy to see not first turn Magisa?
Yeah, I mean, so the Magissa matchups, like a lot of matchups with Mono Wind are fairly straightforward against aggro, at least. Like Magissa's intending to play like 2 forwards on turn 1, probably play a 3rd forward during your turn, and then just kill you over the next 2 turns. So Magissa's only really planning to do 3 turns of the game. Mono Wind generally needs like a couple of turns breathing room to set up 3 backups, and then at that point it can pop off. So every turn Hunter gave me without developing a big board or dealing any points of damage was a whole extra turn's worth of draws and CP for me. So when he didn't Magisa turn 1, it was great, and then when he just, I think he ended up doing it turn 2, he still didn't put that much sort of threatening on the board. So I didn't have to go crazy on the following turn either. So there's that sort of 2 turns worth of breathing room was enough to make me actually pretty comfortable at that point.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Like I said, congrats for your 2 times World Championship win. And that would also mean you can get a signature card, and they already have started asking you on the day zero, let's say like that, your day one that you're second time champ. Now that you have you said like you kind of know what kind of card you might want to. Just out of curiosity, can you give us a hint?
Well, I mean, it's pretty easy to give a hint. There's two options. There's either a sort of meta defining card,
Mhm.
probably one of the ones that I would have played in my two decks, as that kind of makes most sense, or I choose a kind of a joke card, which means something to me. And yeah, it's sort of, I think most people who know me know that if I'm going to pick a joke card, it would probably be some copy of Exdeath. All the copies of Exdeath that I can pick based on the criteria I had for the first time. I don't know if it's changed for this year,
Mhm.
but based on the criteria I had the last time, there are very few decent Exdeaths to pick. There are very few decent Exdeaths in the game, but yeah, it probably would be a copy of Exdeath if I go down the route of just doing something for me because I did Bart's the first time around. It would be kind of amusing to me 5 years later to do an Exdeath alongside him. But I might just flake out and just do a normal good card. But yeah, I still haven't thought about it that much yet, to be honest.
Not yet. Okay. And also at the end of the stream, they were asking how you felt, and you were like, two times. That's pretty cool. And you were happy that you gave yourself the nickname Mr. Cool. Can you tell us about the origin of the nickname?
It's nothing. It's nothing special, really. It's just one of those ones where one day I just woke up and I was like, "Be cool to have a nickname." And I was like, "I'm pretty chill, relaxed guy, you know. Never get too, don't think, try not to take things too seriously. Try to stay relaxed and chill at all times. Doesn't usually work out, but it's a kind of, a reminder all the time. So, yeah, it's a self-imposed nickname, which probably sounds really arrogant, calling yourself Mr. Cool, but I don't know. I think it's stuck well. I think it's something people find funny and appreciate. So it's kind of worked out for the best, I think.
Yeah, I think it depends how you play it off. And like you said, you're a very relaxed player, you're a very relaxed guy. So that's gonna be in your favor. Like it's I don't feel it like arrogant in that way anyway. Thank you for having this short interview with me. Any last words?
Uh, yeah, well, thank you for having me on. It's been fun talking about it. Good to watch the games back. I still need to do that actually because I'm still writing up my own report of the event. But yeah, I really appreciate all the support that came in during and after the event, and appreciate all the people that sort of helped me get to that position again in the first place. The community is great as always, and yeah, couldn't have done it without all my friends. So thanks a lot.